All right.
Thank you. Good evening. This is the Katuitt Fire District Prudential Committee meeting of the January 23rd, 2023. At the moment, we're waiting for another member of the committee because we don't have a quorum. Well, actually, we do 2 out of 3 as a quorum, but.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I'd like to give Seth a couple of minutes.
Oh, they're here.
Seth's here. Charlie, good. Okay. Good evening, Seth. You're muted.
Oh, yep. Sorry, I was technical difficulties, but here I am.
Yeah. Good evening, Charlie. Charlie, you're muted. Okay. All right. We'll do the roll call. Mark Lynch,
Here.
Seth Burdick,
Here.
Fran Parks present, Ray Perone,
Here.
Charlie Eager. Lost Charlie. Charlie, you present? Okay. Can we stand for the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and
and
to the
to the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes of the
Yeah.
December meeting?
I did.
Any problems or concerns?
Not on my end.
Not for me.
Could I have a motion to accept the December minutes, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. So the water commissioners contacted me. I've sent you the information they sent on to me, and they wanted to make a presentation this evening. So Mark Robinson. Hi. You're muted.
Hi all. Thank you for inviting us, or me.
Yeah. So why don't you commence your presentation?
Mark, would you like to share your file or would you like me to share it for you?
Oh, if you have it, that would be terrific.
Sure.
So this, in a nutshell, is, I think, to me, addressing a basic human right of having access to clean water, which is what the district provides and has provided for over 70 years. Everybody in town deserves the right to have water that's available to them for their basic human needs. This is something that's been recognized and addressed from everywhere from the United Nations down through the United States to the state government of Massachusetts. And many different policy institutes are recommending that it's a human need to have access to clean water. So obviously this is something that is something that we provide as clean water. What the Water Commission in general has been concerned about in recent years is the fact that we're providing clean, safe drinking water, half of which is used in the course of a year for irrigating using the public water supply to irrigate. I'm getting feedback from somebody here. So I put together a document, which I'm calling a draft policy. And I'll just read a little bit of it, that the Commission recognizes a universal human right to access a minimum amount of clean, safe drinking water for its community. And as a consequence of this recognition, we declare that the annual minimum volume of water, 20,000 gallons per year per service, shall be provided free of charge. The Water Commission asserts that additional volumes shall be charged in a manner to offset the loss in revenue associated with this right to free water. And the Water Commission has the legal authority to adjust rates to pay for water under its enabling legislation. So if you scroll down, you'll see that what this would do is that everybody would continue to pay $20 per year per meter. That's just an annual cost. But then there would be no charge for the first 20,000 gallons of water per account. And that would save everybody $80 a year. There'd be no change in the water rates for more than half of the accounts, people who use less than 60,000 gallons of water a year. In order to make this revenue neutral, the rate increases would be applied to the heavy users who use more than 60,000 gallons a year. And those rate increases would range from 15% to 25% based on the tier. The heaviest water, we have about almost 100 people who use more than 200,000 gallons of water a year, which is a staggering amount. You can see that here with the greater than 200,000 gallons per year. So you can see that the current rates, $4, $5.50, $7.15, those are the people who will use less than 60,000 gallons per year. That's about 57% of our accounts. So they wouldn't change. The people at the lowest level would have free water if they're using less than 20,000 gallons per year. And people who use a lot of water would be paying a lot more for that privilege. So the idea is to simply shift some of the cost from the lower users to the higher users. And this is something that's been recognized elsewhere in the United States. There are policy papers indicating that that's a recommendation in some of the major cities dealing with low income people particularly. We don't want to use some kind of a means test to figure this out. We're just too small and understaffed to be able to do that. So I think that giving it across the board, 20,000 gallons for free, and then increasing the rates on the higher uses to recognize the fact that irrigation should not be using the public water supply. So the rest of the document is just simply some background research that I've done and some numbers that Jen Nash and Chris Wiseman from the staff have provided me. If you want to go to the last page, Lisa, that would be good. I don't want to take up too much time tonight for the folks, but this is available to read. So at the very end here, I've done some quick analysis showing how the rate increase that we instituted in 2019, effective in 2020 fiscal year, basically more than doubled the excess water use revenues from the district. And so for the first time, the water department became more than self-supporting in terms of its operating expenses. You'll see that in the last audited fiscal year, 2021, we generated over $1.3 million in revenue and almost double the operating expense of the district. So there's plenty of money coming in through the water revenues. And yet the change in the water rates, as you'll see at the very bottom here, is not affecting the volume of water that's pumped. So if I know there's a concern that if we charge more for the heavy use, we'll reduce the use and therefore reduce the revenues. We have not seen that yet. FY 2020 was an anomaly. The 240 million gallons we think is reflecting the fact that it was a very different year with people moving into the village for COVID reasons, pandemic purposes, and also the fact that there was a drought that year as well as the past year. So in a nutshell, that's the idea. If you scroll up just a little bit, Lisa, you'll see the analysis that we looked at these top three tiers. By increasing the rates, we can generate the $183,000 that would be quote unquote lost by making the first 20,000 gallons free for each household. I'm happy to answer any questions. So the idea is that we would have some public hearings in February and March at the Water Commission, get the word out and see if we can get people to comment and see whether this is a good idea or not. We had one question last week at the Water Commission meeting. Has this been done elsewhere on the Cape? And the answer is no. And I think that is not a reason not to do something. I think if it's something that we can afford and make a little bit of benefit to all of our residents, while at the same time making sure that the people who are using lots of volumes of water are paying appropriately for it. I think that makes good fiscal sense and it makes good policy sense.
Any questions, Seth, Mike?
No, I think it's pretty clear. It sounds like a fine idea to me.
Mark, this is Mark
Mark.
Lynch. I'm participating by phone. So basically, this is a continuation of the process you started back in, I guess, in 2019 of increasing these rates, and your proposal essentially is to make make them steeper. That is the rate of increase steeper. And did I hear you correctly that when we did this a couple of years ago, we were hoping to do two things. Well, mainly, I think we were hoping to decrease the use of water. And I thought I heard you say that didn't happen.
We excuse me. We would like to see that as an impact. I mean, obviously, price affects demand typically, but we haven't seen it yet. And we've had now 2 full years. It's a little hard to equate apples to apples because of the COVID year in particular, and also the droughts of the last 2 years. But we have not seen a decrease in the water use. I can tell you I've now spent 5 years as a water commissioner. And the thing that's had the greatest impact on me is listening to our superintendent, who's been with the department most of his career, does a wonderful job. Having him tell us he goes to the pump stations on the summer mornings, and those pumps are just hammering. They're hammering out water. And the times are between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. That's the time when the water tanks are drained for all of the irrigation. And so he has to keep those pumps running madly to get the tanks replenished on those summer mornings. It's something that we've been ignoring for decades, that the fact that, you just turn on the spigot, the water comes out, and it's been essentially free for many, many years. We've been subsidizing the water department with the taxes, the property taxes of the district to a great extent. And so finally now, not only are we covering our costs, we're creating this great surplus. I think that what I'm hearing, and I don't quite understand what happens with all this surplus, whether it can be generated indefinitely or if it should go into stabilization funds. We are recognizing that we have capital expenses coming down the pike. But in this proposal, we're not actually losing any revenue. We're just shifting it.
Anything else from you, Mark?
I don't think so. I'm just, our high-end users seem to be very price inelastic. That is that these increased rates don't seem to affect them at all. So I'm generally on board with the idea of kind of cranking up the rates a little more, at least for the very highest end. I think that's all I have. One thing, I wasn't quite sure. It wasn't quite clear to me how we came to the number of 20,000 gallons. Can you briefly explain how we came up with that number?
Yeah, Lisa, if you could scroll up a little bit. Next page, maybe. Keep going. that page there. So I looked at different sources of information, Mark, estimates from the United Nations, from the US EPA, and then actually from our own department, Katuitt. The average Katuitt household uses 70,000 gallons per year. The median is 52,000 gallons per year. So at 52,000 gallons a year, those rates are not going to change for the median household use. The EPA estimates that the average American family uses more than 300 gallons per day. That's roughly 75,000 gallons per year. So where does 20,000 come from? It's a little arbitrary, but it's to indicate that we don't want we don't feel that the entire average household use should be free, but that some minimum that we know how to charge, and 20,000 gallons has been a level that we've used as a minimum for the minimum base use each year. And so
Okay.
that's where that comes from. It's a little arbitrary, but I think it's indicating that we want to make sure that most families are paying something for water.
Okay, thanks. That was the sense I had. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
I have several questions and concerns. My first question would be, since raising the rates have not affected the high-end users, have you given any consideration to calling them up or talking to them? You know, some of the high-end users may not even be paying their own bills. Their
Right.
bills just go to somebody who pays it for the family. So they have no idea how much they're using, how much they're paying, and, you know, the strain it's putting on our system. So since raising it, you know, previously has not been effective, you know, I would, you know, make an attempt to get in touch with those high-end users and discuss it with them.
Yeah. Well, there's several hundred people in that category, Fran. You know, we did institute the irrigation policy a year or so ago, in which we've now banned the installation of new in-ground automatic sprinkler systems that are connected to the water supply. People can still put them in, but they have to also install a private well to draw the water from.
But that's the private wells drawing the water from the same place you're drawing the water. So it's just.
Yeah, that's a little misapprehension. Most of the properties that are putting in private wells are outside of the zone 2 to our well fields. So
No, I'm not talking, I'm talking about the aquifer, the basics aquifer of Cape Cod. It's all one aquifer.
right, but there are portions of the aquifer that are supplying the water into our water supply system. That's what's called the zone 2. It's these ellipses that radiate northward from the wells toward the top of the water table in the mid-Cape. And so we actually doing some more work right now to refine those zone 2s that are set by DEP. So we have a better handle on which properties are actually coming into the water supply. But if you think of houses, you know, down on the waterfront, there is fresh groundwater under those properties, and they're perfectly capable of tapping into that for their own irrigation needs. The way it's been explained to me is the 5 big wells that we have are 5 big straws, which are have far more impact on the aquifer than 100 little straws. Certainly in terms of the cone of depressions, which is the technical term.
So I want to comment about free water. When I first finished my pediatric residency and started working in Braintree, I worked for an HMO, a health maintenance organization, which was basically, you know, once their fees were paid for the insurance, usually by their employer, they had free care. And when anything is free, people use a lot more of it. And I don't think they're going to know when to stop of, quote, using more of the free water, because there's not going to be anything, unless they run down and look at their meter, there isn't going to be any ding to say they're now at the point where they're paying for the water. I have no problem providing water to make sure everybody in this village has water. But I think that, you know, I've talked to the committee about this a couple of times before, the water commissioners. I think you need to make an effort to let people know that if they're having difficulty with paying their bill, it should be a statement on your bill to contact you. That's all you'd have to do. There are people I know who are having problems, but don't want to be embarrassed by not paying their bill and having people know that. And they'll go without something else like medicine or fuel oil or whatever. So nobody knows that. And, you know, I think you need to make an effort to, you know, gather those people in. You know, you're going to charge the high users more per year for their water, but you're also going to give them 20,000 gallons free. I personally don't need 20,000 gallons free. Most of the residents of Katuitt don't need 20,000 gallons free. I think it's a very nice thing to do. But I think that what are you going to do when you have to stop doing it? Which there will be a point where, you know, you're going to have to stop doing it. And there's also going to be a point where we are going to have to set up a water treatment plant. Maybe not this year, next year, or 10 years from now, but at some point we're going to have a water treatment plant because that's where the state's heading. They want everybody to have a water treatment plant. And these are not well-educated, reasonable people, as far as I can tell, if they think that everybody should make a $30,000 change to their septic system in 5 years. So I don't know. I just think you need to do some sort of reach, you know, some sort of contacting the high users and explain the problem. You know, I'm sure many of them have absolutely no idea how much water they're using because they don't see the bills. So I think just charging more water, more money, which obviously hasn't worked in the past, is just repeating the same thing that didn't work in the past. And that's.
Well, those are all good comments, and I appreciate it. Obviously, most people in Katuitt can pay $80 a year for their initial water bill, and I don't think that's the issue. I don't think the issue is really a question of finances or even fairness. I think it's a question of a principle that I think Katuitt has always prided itself in being different in terms of understanding human values and the fact that this is a community and we're all in this together. I have no problem giving the richest person in Katuitt an $80 a year subsidy. I'm going to make it up at the back end if you want to look at it in dollars and cents. But in terms of human equity, I think that everybody should be able to have access to water and not fret about paying this bill or their medical bill or their heating bill. That we've done something that we can do as a district. We provide the water. We don't provide the heat. We don't provide the medicine. We do provide the water. And if that's some way that we can provide some benefit to everybody in the district, I think it's a question of fairness and equity. And I don't have any problem with giving somebody who can afford it the same break as somebody who has trouble with it. In terms of the inelastic demand that we're seeing, at some point there's a tipping point and we may have less water pumped. Guess what? That's good. We are pumping way too much water in a district for less than 3,000 homes. And I can't even imagine where 200,000 gallons of water go. People do call the office with concerns. We find out about leaks, and by getting their bill and comparing it to their other bills, we find out they have had leaks. We have a leak policy, we adjust it. We don't force people to pay for leaks on a one-time basis. And I think that we've done a lot to reach out to people like that. We also have payment plans that we've set up for people who request it. I don't think it's up to the one person as the office manager to be reaching out to hundreds of households in Katuitt.
But you can just.
They reach out to her, believe me.
You can include it in the billing information. You know, I mean, how hard is that?
That's a great idea.
You know?
Absolutely.
You know,
Of course, the billing information goes to the people who pay the bills. And as you say, some of these households, they never see the bills. Their managers just pay it.
right. Well, I think, you know, the lower income people are probably looking at their own bills.
I think they are. And again, these bills go out twice a year. So it's not like it's going to build up forever and then they're going to get whopped. They'll see it every 6 months.
Anything? Ray, do you have any questions, concerns?
I have one small question, but it's not exactly on topic to it is on topic to this, but as far as the ongoing, strategy for trying to curb the excessive pumping and use for irrigation, you have the ban on now. Are you guys, I'm sure you're talking about it, managing the extreme overusers and not having their systems hooked to the well, such as it is?
Yeah, well, we spent a couple of years talking about the irrigation policy. Again, we just don't have the staff to do, to play water cop and go in and
Right.
we
Of
talked
course.
about having separate meters just for the irrigation system. We've talked a lot of different ways to handle it. It seems to always come back to, keep it simple, stupid. Rates are one thing that we can, it's easy to administer. A ban on new systems is easy to administer. There are people that could, try to work the system and get around it and hire a rogue plumber, I suppose. But, we do have pretty good compliance, I would say, so far with the installers of those systems. They seem to know the word is out in Katuitt that, Katuitt's tough on this compared to other places. And we know that several people have put in private wells and seem quite satisfied with them. So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I see what you mean. I get it.
I mean, outreach is a great thing, but I just, with the limited staff that we have in the department, it's I think
Mark?
other than providing written information, we could do that.
Mark, have you ever considered a limit on usage per account?
No.
Particular reason why?
I think, again, it would be a question of how do we decide? I mean, who's to say what
I
amount
think
is
you
fair?
just did in your presentation.
Did I?
I think you identified the people who use an inordinate. I don't think those were your words, but I think that's pretty much what you communicated, at least what I heard.
Well, I don't know any individual household. Is there a family of 12 out there? I don't know. But we do know that it's the summertime, most of the pumping. It's not just because there are more people in Katuitt. We know that statistically it's a much higher increase than the doubling of the population or whatever we have. But to limit, what are we going to do? We get to 200,000. We're going to shut the tap off.
Yes.
Yeah, well, maybe that's something we'll explore in the future, but
I mean,
that's
you
not
could
on the
talk-
table. I'm sorry.
I said you could talk about, henceforth or at this date, any use over such and such will require special permission.
Not a bad idea.
I mean, if we're really concerned about the total volume and we've identified 93 people out of 3,000,
Well,
that
it's
are the
actually
source of the
more like
problem.
it's more like 500. It's those top two tiers particularly.
Well, just start with the very top.
Yeah.
Just start
Okay.
working on the very top.
Well, I mean, the rate will talk to them, and if it doesn't, then we can institute other measures.
So then what are you gonna do? It just doesn't changing the rate doesn't seem like a very proactive thing to me. It just, you know,
Well, we could leave all the rates alone and just make the first 20,000 free, but then we're going to lose revenue.
well, obviously, but, you know, I think you need to, for those, you know, start with the 93 people that are using more than 200,000 gallons. You know, you can send them a, you know, start out with a, you know, a form letter to them. I still think, you know, personal contact is, would go a long way.
So
So,
I'm,
Fran, what would that letter say?
Well, it would say that, you know, show them that they're using 200,000 gallons and, you know, that, that's putting a great strain on the system. It's a precious resource, blah, blah, blah. That, you know, so like I said, some of those 93 people, 3 households probably don't even know how much they're paying for water.
Yeah.
so, you know, the purpose of this policy is not to reduce water consumption. That may be a side effect. The purpose of this policy is to provide the equity for everybody to have access to clean water at an affordable rate. And I think that the second 2 tiers are still affordable. Making the first tier free is not going to upset the district's financial position, given the subsidy shift to the top. We can address their usage in other ways, but that's not the intent of this policy. It's not intended to reduce consumption. It's intended to provide equity. Reducing consumption may be a side effect.
So why do we need equity? Equity means making everybody exactly the same. It's not the same as equality.
Right. So everybody will be treated the same. They'll all get 20,000 gallons free.
To the extent that we can use it also to reduce pumping, that would be very, very nice. I don't know if there's a way to do that. You know, I think it will have at least the side effect, hopefully, of reducing consumption. I mean, the letters would be nice. I think, you know, your friend's probably right. Some people don't know how much they're using or how much they're spending. But the thing that's going to change behavior is going to be cost. Eventually, presumably, although right now, the increases that we've instituted in the past don't seem to have made much of a dent.
We did send out a letter when we increased the rates in 2019, and I'd be happy to share that with the committee to refresh your files with it. And certainly, if this is instituted, this new policy, we would be sending out, you know, a new batch of letters to everybody, and maybe emphasize in a paragraph, if you think you are a very high user, we can talk to you about ideas that you could have to save on water. Certainly, installing a private well is the best way for them to do that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think
I remember Chris telling me that we have accounts in town that spend on occasion $7,000 a year in water bills, which would be almost enough in 1 year to put in a private well.
Right.
So maybe letting them know that math might have some effect. But
Yeah.
all right, Mark, thank you. It's been very helpful to me.
so, Mark, instead of saying, if you think you're a high user, you want to put in the letter, we know you're a high user.
I agree. Yeah, like you've been identified as a high user.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
this is how much you spent. Although, you know, the letter is probably going to go to the property manager as well. But you know, it's worth a shot.
Yeah. You know.
I could tell you from my own experience working with landowners around the Cape, the son of a Hollywood actor out in Truro, I said, you're getting hammered with property tax, and you could do some conservation here and really reduce the property tax by $10,000 a year. And he says, "Oh, what's property tax?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There you go.
The lawyer in Los Angeles pays all that. So,
Okay, well, thank you very much,
Must be
Mark.
nice.
So just to recap, we've discussed this now twice informally amongst our water commission, and I'd like to have at least two public sessions, perhaps with the Civic Association and certainly with our water commission. And if we can get it ready in time, I'd like to have it in time for the FY24 budgeting. But I don't want to rush into this either. It took us 3 years to get the irrigation policy. So.
No, Mark, if it doesn't affect the overall revenue, it shouldn't be a big impact on the budget. So
Good.
I wouldn't worry about that deadline then.
Thank you.
It looks like it would be a 30% or a 25% increase in the highest tiers, right? That would be a significant amount of money that would be generated by that. I mean, just as an aside, it doesn't hurt my feelings.
How's this going to affect the business owners?
We've actually instituted a relief valve for the commercial establishments. And that went into effect last year.
Oh, okay. Great. Okay, anything else? And anybody? Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for your time. I know it shouldn't have taken this long, but thank you.
That's okay. We're good.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, Ray.
Yes. December marks the point at which we're halfway through the fiscal year. So the budget target for revenue and expenditures is 50%. And standing back and looking at it overall, we're slightly behind from a revenue standpoint, 49%, and well below from an expenditure standpoint at 43%. And that's once we pull out all the one-time annual payments and transfers, which were done on budget. The weak area in revenue are property tax collections and, surprisingly, water rates. There will be a late property adjustment that'll go somewhat to offset the shortfall that we have as of the end of December. And also the bills are going out now, so that should generate some incremental increase in the monthly amount of our tax collections for property. But on the other hand, we got another large refund bill from the town. And as I did last year, I wrote to the treasurer and collector. I've received a response, but candidly, I looked at it and it's going to take a little investigation, if you will, to discern exactly what information they provided. And I'll report on that next month. While water rates are down, the water department has informed me that the January bill is almost $1 million. And that's almost twice what they had anticipated. So the shortfall in water rates will be certainly made up and probably put us in a surplus budget position at the end of the year. In expenditures, as I said, we're overall below when you take out the one-time items. And when you look below the overall, there are a few exceptions, but they're minor. The fire department has vehicle maintenance over budget, but that reflects some catch-up work that is a conscious program with them. Also, building supplies are over, but when I looked at that, and I haven't had time to parse it out, that we have an article for station repairs, and there could be some items that in that building supply that really belong in the article, not in operations. In the water department, there was one other one. The telephone is over. It's a minor one, but we don't know any reason for that other than maybe we didn't do the budget right. In the water department, just minor exceptions, nothing really worth reporting. In the Freedom Hall budget, we know we have a ground maintenance maintenance, and we discussed that. The only other areas of note are a new parental leave stipend in the fire department. And that was instituted in the expectation of mitigating the increase in overtime that would be generated by a complete utilization of the parental leave policy as the current statutory regulations allow. And also there's a med insurance option that we've mentioned before, and that was a budget error. I'm not sure if we won't squeak under the overall budget for benefits. But I'll need a couple more months to see if that really is true. On page 2, I've listed all the appropriations, beginning with those that were opened at the start of the year. As you'll note, there's most of the activity is in the transfer area, and those were carried out on budget. The only one that wasn't done yet was OPED, and we did that in January. So basically we're tracking on budget and on schedule with respect to articles. On page 3, I present our plans for employing idle cash. And last week, I executed part of that, purchasing a 90-day certificate of deposit at 4.5%, which was covered the district's stabilization funds of $661,000. And I purchased that at Cape Cod 5, where the money was actually residing. Experience indicates that Cape Cod 5 is more aggressive. It also has a brokerage operation, which in both cases the cooperative bank does not have. They seem to be running about a half point, 1/4 to a half a point higher than the cooperative. So my tendency is to go with them. And the other reason is that the cooperative does not offer T-bills, and I do want to employ some of our idle operating funds on 4 and 8 week investments. And so I'll be opening an account with Cape Cod 5 to do that, and be moving some of our operating money on a temporary basis to Cape Cod 5 for those 4 and 8 week T-bills. Just as a note, that $600,000 of stabilization fund was at 4.5%. And the current rate that we were getting up to date was somewhere in the 2 to 2.5% rate. So we should have a nice pickup on our stabilization funds for that, hopefully to, if not keep pace with inflation, offset some of it. Any questions on what I presented?
I had a question, but I think I forgot it. I think the building may be because supplies, maybe because they had to fix the stairs at the fire station.
Could, oh, that's right. Yeah, they did that. Could be. I don't know if that's within the scope of that article, but it's something to look at. The only other thing I was going to mention is fiscal 22. The audit field work was completed last week. No exceptions were reported to me at that time. And the report is currently being compiled and reviewed within the accounting firm. The report should be available next month.
Great. Any questions for Ray?
Not for me.
Mark?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm fine.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Ray. Freedom Hall. We're still have lots of inquiries for using the building, which is good. There's a problem with the chairs. They're falling apart. We don't have enough, we have a capacity supposedly of 150 people, and we only have about 90 chairs now at the moment. So I've done some looking for the cost of new chairs, and it's, you know, ridiculous, $100 per chair. So we need to keep on looking, but I'd like to see, you know, those chairs replaced, and you know, put that on for an article for the annual meeting. And the other thing is Freedom Hall. We're going to have to, unless there's a change up at the State House, we'll be going back to in-person meetings in April. That's when the Zoom will be terminated. And they haven't apparently haven't come up with a hybrid method as of yet. So the water department has been going back to the hall, and their recordings are just completely uninterpretable. It just, you can't hear. So I would like to try and get the OWL system that we talked about in the past, and try that out and see how it works.
I think that would be, I've been watching the Osterville Village Library for some reason. They've been having a lot of meetings lately with relative to that the wind energy thing that they're proposing on Dowses Beach.
Yeah.
But that's what they have, I think, and it looks like it works pretty well.
Okay. So maybe I'll find out which version of it they're using. And, you know, we can try it, and if it doesn't work, we can just send it back, but we need to, you know, if we're going to go back to having meetings there, we need to, you know, have something better than what we've been using. Because,
Fran, when you talk to them, find out what the height of the ceiling is that they're in, because it makes a huge difference on the rebounding of the sound, and Freedom Halls are very tall.
yeah, thank you. So that's it for Freedom Hall. The Katuitt School. Mark?
I have nothing new to report. I have nothing new to report on that front. The next step was supposed to be going before the planning board to get a approval not required on the subdivision. I've not heard back. I assume I would have if that had occurred. So let me follow up with that and see if that occurred, and if not, when it's going to be on the schedule next, because that is the next step.
Yeah, I think the conservation restrictions, last I heard, are still in Boston.
No, that has not been, no. It will need to be approved at some point, but I think you'll recall from our last discussion that once that is finally resolved between the town and the village, we plan on going through with the transaction and then getting the approval after the fact, because lately they've been taking around a year. But it is not completely confirmed yet.
Okay,
I think we're probably about 95% there.
In our last meeting, was that when Jim was here and you guys were you were to have a meeting with Andy Clyburn, but wasn't, was that last month or the month before? I can't remember.
no, they were
There was
supposed,
no scheduled meeting.
Must
with
have been
Andy.
the month before. Yeah, because I wasn't unable to attend.
You
that,
were
but
away,
I think,
that's right.
yeah, Jackie and Jim did.
And Jim. So that meeting did occur, and that's what eventually, and then so I get it. All right, I was just confused about the timeline.
yeah, the beat goes on at the Katuitt School.
I guess so.
So, bylaw and policy advisory committees.
I have not held a meeting yet, but I will soon. I know I said that last month.
Yeah.
But I'm still got 6 months before the end of the year. So I'll be doing it shortly.
Okay, thanks.
I have not even begun to contemplate that, but I will put it on my list.
Great, thank you. So,
Is the bylaw committee the same as it was last year?
I have to, I'm not sure. I have to contact, Mark.
I think it feel like it was because I know that the other one was as well.
Yeah.
But I'm not certain of that.
Yeah.
If you can just confirm that, and then I will send out an email and start getting a calendar going.
Okay, will do. So is there any public comment?
Yes, Fran, BD says that he has a background in AV and knows at least 2 people in the area who are experts in theater and live sound, and he'd be happy to reach out to them and then connect back with the Prudential Committee.
Well, we would be thrilled to have that happen. Need all the help we can get.
Hi, so if I can just introduce myself, because I forgot to change my Zoom name. It's Brett Dykeman, 17 Clamshell Point Lane. And yes, I've actually been trying to find people I've been looking for opportunities to volunteer with some local theater groups and whatnot. And in the course of that, I've met some people in the area who do a lot of theater sound. And I met one of them at a live event in a bar that he was handling the sound for, and I was stunned at how good the quality was. He very much knows his
Oh,
stuff.
great. That'd be great.
Okay, I'll reach out to him and I'll see if I can I'll give him some of the commissioner's email addresses and ask him to get in touch.
Great, thank you. Thank you. So if there's nothing else, the next meeting will be the 27th of February. And there are no other concerns, questions, or comments. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So
I
moved.
move to adjourn, or I second it then.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you very much, everybody.
Fran, can I ask you a
thank
question?
you.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
What is the moderator's email address?
I have it at home. I'll send it to you. I have it at home. I have it in my computer.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Great, thank you.
All right, well, thanks a lot. I'll see you all soon.
And I am present.
Yes, Charlie. Thank you.